Hi everyone, it's Heidi from flutterbyheidi.co.uk and I'm back with another of my Dandy Garden Suite inspiration projects. So the complete suite I'm showcasing in a separate video called a Suite Inspiration, but today I'm going to be using the Garden Wishes part of the Mega Suite. So that's this stamp set here, which has got lovely dandelion flowers on it and the coordinating dies that cut out not only the images but other quite stylized flowers, which you can see here. So these are all the elements that you've got, and some super sentiments in there as well as these little bees, which you've got two dies for, so you can cut out two at a time. The paper I'm using is this 6x6 paper, and these are all the papers and their reverses, as you can see there, and so you get 4 sheets each of 12 different designs, and this is the colour palette. And today I'm working with the bumblebee, which I think is fabulous because we're going to make this card here, which is a suspension card, but we're using the flower elements as the connector for the suspension. And then on the inside you can see we've actually stamped the image and the little bee as well to create a sort of a scene effect as well. So that's what we're doing. So the first thing you're going to need is a piece of card that is 10.5 by the full length of A4. You're going to cut it 10.5, then you want a piece that's 23.5 centimetres. So what you will do, and I've already sort of prepped this, is you'll score at 14.5. You're then going to cut at 15 centimetres, and again, well, basically it's 23.5, and you're going to cut a 4.5-inch piece off. So score, cut at 19 centimetres, and then you want a piece that's 4.5 centimetres, and the remaining piece, and this is thick basic white, you want to actually cut a single outline, not stamped at all, of your flower outline. Next thing we're going to do is actually do some stamping. So you're going to grab yourself some the stamp and some basic white cardstock, just the ordinary for this, and you're going to use some Memento ink. So this is quite a big stamp, so I tend to take the ink pad to the stamp like so, and then once I've inked that up, and it does fit nicely on a 4 1/8 10.5 centimetre piece of cardstock. And then you're going to die cut that out. I tend to die cut before I colour, because then if I mess up the die cutting I haven't lost that time and effort. And I just use a little bit of post-it note tape. So pop that through your cutting machine, and you want 3 of those. No, you want 2 of those. I told an untruth. So once you've got those, I'm going to use my bumblebee and my mossy meadow. So I'm going to stick to the colour palette that's in the stamp set itself, or the DSP, and just add. You'll see I've done it already on here. Just add to a block on the end your bit of bumblebee, and do the same on the opposite end of mossy meadow. So you've got it sort of nicely inked up. Then what you want to do is grab your blender pen. Right, you see mine is well used. Just basically wipe it on the edge until the colour comes clear. And what you're going to do is then, I tend to come down the centre or do the stems first with my sort of first bit of colouring. Then I come back in and just colour those with my blender pen afterwards. So down the stem where it might be a little darker, just to colour those fronds. And the blender pens mean that you can colour using Memento and our inks, whatever colour ink pad you happen to have. So it's a great way of combining colouring with your ink pads. You don't get the same, blending effect that you get with our Stampin' Blend, so it is a different effect that you're going to get. But for stamps like these, that are only sort of narrow, I find this using the blender pen is just a great way to start with the colouring, and just to get. So it's quite therapeutic. I mean, you can obviously go into a lot more detail. The other thing you could potentially do with this is to colour it with our watercolour pencils and then use a blender pen. In fact, I think when I did that sample, that's what I actually did with that one. Because what I often will do is I'll have a kind of day of creating, and then when I next get an opportunity, I come back to my samples and I can't always remember exactly what I've done. So that's why it can, but then it just shows that, whatever technique is your preference. I love our watercolour pencils. They blend beautifully. I just don't use them as much as I probably should. Well, when I say should, I don't think to use them as often as some of the other techniques. I tend to have my blender pen always to hand. So once you've done as much colouring as you want of the stems, then we're just going to really sort of colour those dandelion heads. And you'll see I'm just starting the centre where it would naturally be a bit darker, where the petals are denser, and just coming out with those. So say some really nice, and the stamp does all the hard, as is often the case, the stamp does the hard work, creates this with a lovely area. And if you come outside a little bit, that doesn't matter either, it looks just as effective. Or you could really do some detailed shading if you wanted to as well. And then if you wanted to, you could just add a little bit of, I'm just going to grab some crumb cake actually, and just add a little bit to the ground, just to ground those. If you wanted to use, I don't normally dip it into my ink pad, but I think just a little bit. You could also, if you wanted to, go around the outer edge and ground those elements with a bit of something like some sort of pale pool party. Just make sure that you've given you can see here by scribbling off, I'm just getting rid of the colour in my pen. But when you've used quite a strong colour, just make sure that you've removed all of that before you use another colour in it. Because obviously you're going to spoil it otherwise, but a little bit of pool party, you could go around the outside edges of those as well. So we've got our two elements. Now what we want to do is create our focal element. So all I'm going to do here is just let's add a tiny little mark on both of those to show me where my panel's going to come to. And I'm going to come back in with my memento, my little bee. Oh no, I'm not. I'm going to do my big image first. So do your large image first, because so I can line my bee up with that. So all I did was I just popped this image, it's probably slightly lower, so it's kind of coming off the bottom of the page in there. In fact, I've probably gone a little bit further to the left than I did originally. But then what you can do is have a bee coming into our flower with our little bee trail. And then actually I might put another little bee in there. So we've got our little bees following on, and this one's going to do a bit of I've done a loop-the-loop at the other end. Okay. So now we can start creating our next lot of layers. So you want 2 pieces of bumblebee cardstock, and these have been trimmed to 10.5 by 4.3 centimetres, and you're going to add those on. Just pop, and then the DSP, which I've just put the glue on the wrong side. Okay, let's, best laid plans and all that. Well, let's, seeing as I've made a mistake, we'll go with it and see what we end up with. So just add your cardstock onto the Whisper White, the basic white panels, and just get a very narrow little border. The same on this top one here. Now I'm just going to have a look and see whether I like that dark effect. I'm using a non-sticky piece. Oh, and I've cut it the wrong way, so there we go. I would be able to use that one maybe. So let's have a look, see how it looks with our card. Okay, let's go with it. Happy accidents, you know. So you want 2 pieces at 10.5, and just trim those down to 4 centimetres as well. Add our glue onto the back of that, to the right side. And again, you know, when you're adding layers, always open your card out. That'll just help it fold. And then once you've obviously done that, you can come in and just reinforce that crease. So now we're into creating our aperture. So what I'm going to do here is actually position that, broadly speaking, where I want it. We can see where that is. So that gives me an idea of where to add my glue. So all I can do now is add a little glue here and a little glue here to layer my piece on to the front. Just hold that for a second. And keeping that in place, I'm going to then add glue to the whole of this, because this is obviously going to be our connecting piece, and as a result it doesn't matter where our glue is, because it's going to stick either to the card or to the layer. So we can just add those together like so. And by using the thick basic white, that's going to give that quite a bit of strength. And then we can add our second one onto the front as well. And once that's been added as well, you'll get quite a strong sort of feeling. So the whole of that head is going to add, and the bottom there. And there you'll find that once those have joined together, all these overlapping pieces will help form quite a strong bond for our card. And if you get any glue oozing out, which I have done a particularly good job of doing, just grab yourself a scrap of card and just lift it away like so. And then obviously if you've got a glue eraser, once that has dried you can remove that as well. But there we have a pretty suspension card. Using our lovely Garden Wishes design. So, have fun creating. Not sure about the darker one. I don't know. What do you think? I certainly think you could do a whole range of things with these DSPs. And if you feel that it's still a little bit on the flimsy side, then all you do is just add an extra layer to the back of here, and you will find that it is nice and strong. But by the time that glue has dried, you will find that is nice and firm and stands up perfectly. So, thank you for watching. Come back and see me again soon. If you'd like to purchase any of the products you've seen today, just pop along to my shop or use the links below this video, and you'll find everything you need at heidismith.stampinup.net. Thanks for watching. Bye now.